There's an ancient Chinese proverb that says all gardeners know better than other gardeners. Well, that probably extends to more than just gardening if you're that type of person. But what we're going to do is take a look at some urban legends or other mythical sayings and try to make sense out of them, fact or fiction. This was meant to be interactive, but we don't have time to do the voting buttons, so we'll move right along. Number one, fact or fiction. Putting a layer of gravel at the bottom of a pot will improve its drainage. I'll let you think about that for just a second. And the answer is false. The reason why. This is called the perched water table effect. It happens in all container production. Whenever we remove the plant from Mother Earth or the soil and put it in a container, we have, as the yellow line shows, a water table created in that container. Below the water table, all pores of the soil are filled with water, of course. And as we go above, decreasingly so, we have drier and drier and drier soil. So if the intent is to improve drainage and you put gravel in, as you see on the right, the only thing that you're doing is essentially moving that perched water table up and causing wetter soil to be exposed to your plant's roots. So it really is counterproductive. Number two, all of these have a modicum, a sliver of perhaps fact, but most of them not. And this one has a sliver of fact. Adding sugar to the soil will cause tomatoes to become sweeter. False. Plant root uptake basic nutrients. They cannot uptake sugar. Sugar is a complex carbohydrate that simply can't be taken up by the plant. Now, the sliver of truth here is that if you add sugar to the soil, you might improve soil microbial activity, which in turn could improve the availability of water and nutrients because of the activity on soil structure. But by and large, putting sugar on soil is a waste of time and sugar. Third, and there are companies that make a living by selling this material. When we prune trees, we should protect them by painting them with a wound dressing. Does anybody else see kind of a trend going here? This too is false. Nature knows best. And if you will, just allowing a new cut when pruning trees to be exposed to oxygen and to the air is the very best way to treat that new cut. This is not the same tree that you see, but nonetheless, an example of a newly pruned tree. And there you see the callus collar forming around the cut, and ultimately that, of course, will close in. So save your money and don't bother painting the cut. The next, organic pesticides are less toxic than non-organic. Well, here again, the answer is they can be, but not always. What you see in the background here, dipel, is freeze-dried Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a very popular organic method of controlling like bagworms or so forth. And indeed, dipel is not toxic to warm-blooded animals to a greater extent. There are, however, some very, very sinister organic pesticides that are quite poisonous. No longer on the market, frankly, because of its toxicity. Blackleaf 40, nicotine sulfate. This carries the signal word poison, danger, skull and crossbones because it has a very high toxicity to warm-blooded animals, yet it is organic or natural. Can be derived from a living plant. So it's a fallacy to think that just because something is organic, that it's very safe to use. In general, that's the case, but not always. Watering, preferably we do that in the morning to conserve water, and also that the leaves will evaporate the water and dry quickly. But will it scorch the leaves if we water during the day? The answer is no, it will not. Unless it's a gesneriid, and by that I mean African violet, Gloxinia, Sinningia, so forth, where you get a sudden drop in temperature, that's what really causes the spotting of the leaves. So those little beads of water that might form will not act like a magnifying glass and cause the blades of grass to scorch. As a matter of fact, during the course of a hot day, it's very common on a golf course to do a maintenance task called syringing the green. You and I would call it sprinkling down the green, but they simply apply water to try to increase the humidity, to perhaps lower the evapotranspiration rate, and of course to cool off the stressed grass. Adding sand to a clay-type soil will improve drainage. Not so. Let's remember that clay and sand with heat make bricks, which don't drain very well. Organic matter is the gardener's best friend and the best way to improve soil structure. And this takes time. We probably only can incorporate about 4 inches of well-decomposed organic matter effectively in 1 year. But if we keep doing that each and every year, and we must repeat because organic matter breaks down, and as it does, it's going to release nutrients, and that's one reason we use it. But organic matter is the best way to improve soil drainage. If that doesn't work, then plant on berms or use species that can put up with the very poor drainage that you might have to live with. Adding used coffee grounds around your plants will lower the soil pH. It's false because of the word used. Now, if you have a financial wherewithal to use fresh coffee grounds around your plants, that will, to a certain extent, lower the pH because I think we know coffee is acidic in its nature when brewed. Used coffee grounds, not the case. It's not a bad practice to sprinkle them around your plants because used coffee grounds do represent a source of organic matter. Organic matter that, when it breaks down, will help with soil structure and also release just a few nutrients for the sake of nourishing your plants. Here's one we get really often. Planting melons, especially cantaloupe, next to cucumber will affect the taste of the melons. And you can strike some really severe or vehement arguments here in the minds of some, but it's false. Even though they belong to the same plant genus, Cucumis, muskmelon and cucumber have different numbers of chromosomes. Therefore, genetically, they cannot cross-pollinate. Even if they could, it would be the next generation, the seeds from those melons and cucumbers planted closely together that would manifest any blend of the two types of taste. When you eat a cucumber or you eat a melon, you're eating maternal tissue that is not affected by the pollination in that particular generation. Bagging and removing lawn clippings keeps it healthy. Well, there are certain lawn species that we have to watch the buildup of thatch, but basically this is false. And we have a saying, mow it tall and let it fall. And that simply means that the grass clippings, as they infiltrate into the leaf canopy of the grass, will tend to decompose. And again, once they decompose totally, they will release the nutrients they contained back into the lawn. You bag them and you throw them away or put them on your compost pile. Oh, if you use that compost elsewhere in your garden, you're not wasting that organic matter. But if, on the other hand, you take it to a city composting site, then that's a valuable resource that you have lost. And finally, big finish. This presentation was given at the state fair, so bear with me. This was to advertise Extension. MU Extension is a good source of sound gardening advice, as are Missouri Extension Master Gardeners. And that's absolutely true. Point everyone toward the fact that there is an Extension homepage. Look something like this. In the circle there, you see a search bar, and whatever your question, just type in the title in general terms, and let's say, just for the sake, pruning blackberries. That's something where a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can explain floricanes, you can explain primocanes, but it's much easier to comprehend when you see them. Type in pruning blackberries and hit the go button, and up will pop all of the publications that the University of Missouri Extension has on that subject, and it might even give a few secondary sources such as USDA publications and so forth.